Good afternoon, Framingham State students. My name is Jill Gardosic, and I'm the internship coordinator in the Career Services and Employer Relations Office. Thank you so much for joining me today for our virtual presentation on how a staffing agency can assist you in your job search. This presentation should last anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes. So thank you so much for joining me today. So I'd like to go over our agenda for today's presentation. I'm first going to provide you with an overview of what a staffing agency or a recruiting agency or a placement agency is. All of those terms are interchangeable. I'm going to talk to you briefly about the three branches that exist in staffing agencies, how you can figure out which agency might be right for you by doing a little bit of research and asking some questions of the recruiter you would be working with. Then I'm going to highlight the benefits of partnering with an agency. You, in essence, have someone assisting you throughout your job search process. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about income generation versus having a career path. I know many of you have been at FSU for 4 or maybe more years. You're ready to embark on your career, but due to the evolving COVID-19 situation, the job market landscape has changed dramatically. And some of you may find that while you're waiting to start a career, you may just need to earn some cash quickly at the moment. And partnering with a staffing agency can in fact help you do that. And then last but not least, if there are any questions, we'll have some time at the end of the presentation for that. So what is a staffing agency, a recruiting agency, a placement agency? Again, all of these terms are interchangeable. So staffing agencies typically are hired in the private sector by private companies. So what does it mean when I say the private sector? We're talking about companies that create a product or a service for the purposes of selling it to create a profit. The larger the profit, the better off they are. So when you think about organizations that are close to campus, some that might come to mind are Staples, Bose, the MathWorks, TJX Corporation, so on and so forth. These are private sector companies. They make, buy, sell, distribute goods and services for a profit. And what happens is these private companies, sometimes, if they don't have the staff or the time to do the hiring for their open positions, they will contract with a staffing agency to do a lot of the heavy lifting and take away that burden from them. Staffing agencies are paid a commission. So there's no cost to you, the job seeker, the candidate, for working with a staffing agency, because how the staffing agency gets paid for all of their work is through the company that is hiring them. So for example, if we're talking about Staples Corporation, and Staples contracts with a staffing agency. For today's purposes, for our examples today, I'm going to use Staples as the company, and I'm going to use Robert Half International as the staffing agency. So if Staples Corporation has 100 jobs open, and they reach out to a staffing agency, Robert Half, and they say, we have 100 jobs open. Can you please go out there and look for job seekers? Let us know which are the top of the cream of the crop candidates that we should be interviewing. And the staffing agency does all of the heavy lifting. They'll post those 100 jobs. They'll start having phone interviews with candidates. They'll do face-to-face interviews with candidates. And when they feel that they have found the right mix of education, experience, and skills, they will take the top 3 candidates, connect them, schedule those interviews with Staples, and then hopefully Staples makes a decision of which of those 3 candidates they want to hire, because the staffing agency has done all the preparation work ahead of time for them. So if Staples hires a candidate through Robert Half, then Staples will pay a commission. They will pay a finder's fee to Robert Half, because Robert Half did all of the work in helping them find you the job seeker that they want for that job. Staffing agencies are typically located in urban and metro areas, areas where there are a significant amount of private sector companies in business. So you want to think about places like Boston, Waltham, Burlington, Framingham, Worcester, where there are large, again, groupings of private sector companies. And each agency will staff for one or more specialties. Robert Half International is well known for accounting and finance positions. They handle accounting and finance positions almost exclusively. Some firms are going to focus more on marketing positions. Others will focus on IT. Some will even look at human resources or other administrative positions. So there's a range of specialties, and not all agencies will help fill all positions. So that's where your research comes into play. There are 3 different branches of staffing agencies. They're known as permanent placement, temp-to-perm, and even temporary placement. Some agencies will only have one branch. They will exclusively handle permanent placement. Other agencies will offer all 3 branches. So this is going to be a part of your research to determine what your needs are, and does that agency have a branch to meet your needs. What permanent placement is the staffing agency only looks for job seekers. They only look for candidates that want full-time benefited positions. So if you're currently a senior at Framingham State, due to graduate this May, and you want your first full-time job where you're going to earn an annual salary and have some benefits associated with that, things like health insurance, dental insurance, life insurance, a full-time benefited job, some agencies will just work with companies that have those permanent needs. You're looking for a permanent job in an organization. Another option is called temp-to-perm, meaning the company has decided that they're going to consider candidates on a temporary basis, where the candidate is just earning an hourly wage for a period of time. It could be as little as a month, it could be as long as 6 months, and in some cases it may be as long as 1 year, where you're just earning an hourly salary. There's no benefits associated. You will not be getting health or dental insurance. And then at some point in time, whether it's a month, 3 months, or 6 months, it depends upon the position, the staffing agency helps to the company will determine if they want to make that temporary position full-time at their organization. Sometimes, like the situation that we're experiencing now with COVID-19, temp to perm is the strategy businesses like to use. They'll hire individuals on a temporary basis to keep their business operations running continuously. And if they start to make a profit and they start to generate more revenue, and they're ready to bring people on full time, they will do what's called a conversion. They will convert some temporary workers over to permanent positions, or they'll convert a temporary position into a permanent full-time position. So that's an option. And the third option is just temporary work, meaning a business doesn't have and does not intend to have a permanent position available with an annual salary and benefits. They just need someone for a short period of time, be it a few days, a few weeks, or a few months, and they intend for that person to be paid hourly for that work. And then at the end of the work, that position and that candidate goes away. So how do you decide which agency is right for you? Well, this is where I mentioned research. There's a little bit of research that you need to complete in order to determine which agency might be the right fit for you. So the first, these two items work hand in hand. You need to consider the geographic area in which you're willing to commute every day for your position. So for example, if you are a student who lives in the Framingham area, are you willing to go into Boston for a job every day? What might that look like? Are you going to be taking the commuter rail? Will you be driving to the Riverside stop and be taking the subway in? Are you driving a car, and are you paying in a garage or for other parking? Is that feasible, or does that not interest you? If you're still in the Framingham area, are you willing to go out to Worcester? Are you willing to commute to Burlington, Waltham, or some other way? How are you going to get to that location? So regardless of whether you live in Framingham, Worcester, or another place within the state, you have to first decide what is going to be realistic in terms of the geographic area of where you're looking for companies. Once you've narrowed down that area, you immediately can start building what's called a targeted list, a target list. You want to come up with about 20 or so organizations where you would like to work. This is going to help you in your job search in many ways, but when we're specifically talking about partnering with an agency, once you've come up with a list of 20 organizations where you would like to work, it's time to have a conversation with a recruiter. You can ask that recruiter, are any of these companies represented by your firm? Are these your clients? If your recruiter says no, they don't work with those organizations, then that's probably not a good recruiter, a good agency to work with for your purposes. They will never be able to facilitate a conversation. They will never be able to schedule an interview for you. They will never be able to negotiate on your behalf. Because remember, the recruiting agencies are paid by the companies they're already working with. You can also ask a recruiter to determine if they're right for you, if they're working with some of the companies that are on your target list that you're interested in having interviews with to secure a job. I would also ask the recruiter, how successful have you been in the last year placing someone with a similar background to me in terms of my education and my experience? So for example, if you're working with someone from Robert Half, which specializes in accounting and finance, and because you're a recent college graduate, only looking at entry-level staff accountant positions, you don't want to be partnered with a recruiter that's only been fielding jobs for accounting managers and accounting directors. They are not successfully placing people in the types of roles that are appropriate for you. I did mention there are several benefits to partnering with an agency. So think of it this way. Someone else is searching for jobs that might be appropriate for you. So you're going to be conducting your own job search. This is not a ticket to sit back and relax and not do any other work. You're going to be searching for jobs. It could be on Handshake. It could be through networking connections. It could be, by attending further virtual presentations given by the Career Services and Employer Relations Office. But once you partner with an agency and that recruiter gets to know who you are, your skills, and what types of positions you're looking for, anytime any of their companies, any of their clients have a job opening, they're going to be reviewing your resume to determine if you might be appropriate for that job. And if they think you would be a good match, they're going to call you on the phone and discuss that position with you. So in essence, you have another person simultaneously helping you search for jobs. That recruiter is also someone that's going to help negotiate your annual base salary, meaning what you get paid for that job every year. If not, what's in your overall package, again, meaning benefits, and then your start date. So it's in your recruiter's best interest to get you the highest salary possible, because that's what their commission is calculated from. So for example, let's go back to my example of Staples corporate headquarters. If Staples needs a staff accountant and you interview for that position through the recruiting agency, and Staples decides they want to hire you for the position, and maybe they have established a pay range of $30,000 a year to $35,000 a year. Your recruiter is going to try as hard as they can to make a compelling, convincing argument that you should make closer to $35,000 a year, because they're paid a commission based on that amount. So if the agency is getting a 10% commission, 10% of $30,000 is a $3,000 commission, but a 10% commission of $35,000 is a $3,500 commission. So they're going to work as best they can to negotiate a higher salary for you. It's also possible you're going to learn about otherwise unadvertised job openings. For instance, a company close to the university is Meditech. Meditech specializes in creating computer software that is exclusively used by hospitals and other healthcare settings. They have about 5 or 6 offices. A few years back, they were looking to open a brand new office in the Mansfield area. And so that wasn't advertised. They were in negotiations and deals to rent out office space that was in existence. And when they're trying to open a new office where they're going to need hundreds, if not 1,000 people at that location, in order to do that volume of hiring in a quick span of time, they may be partnering with a recruiting agency to help fill those roles. So unless you were partnering with a recruiting agency that was helping Meditech open their new office, you wouldn't necessarily have found Meditech jobs on Indeed, Career Builder, Monster, Handshake, or any other service, because it was under the radar while these negotiations were happening. It's also possible, I know students are always desperate to get some feedback on their interview performance. You know, interviews can be a little nerve-wracking for students especially, and they want to know, how come I didn't get the position? Why wasn't I chosen? I thought I did great on that interview. Well, when you're working with a recruiting agency, the feedback on how you interviewed is given from the company to the recruiter, because they're trying to determine, of those 3 candidates they've interviewed, whom they're going to hire. So some feedback goes from the company to the recruiter, and if you've built a good relationship with your recruiter, it's very possible they're going to share some of the information with you. They may say, you were, excellent, it's just that someone else had some more experience. Or, they were nervous when you shared this piece of information, or when you answered this particular question. So getting that feedback will allow you to be stronger and more confident and more practiced in further interviews that you do. You also might receive information on the company's hiring process, which is always helpful. When you're working with a recruiter, they will know how many people will interview you, how many interviews will be conducted, and they'll know the timing of those interviews. Again, because they're presenting several job seekers, several candidates for the same position. And they're hoping one of the candidates they present will be selected by the company. So they're going to know much more about the hiring process, and they'll be able to share that with you. And then last but not least, not always, you may receive some information on what's called a base salary range. Recruiters are placing the same types of jobs across many companies. So they're going to have a solid understanding of what a particular type of job pays. So for example, if we go back to my staff accountant example, Staples may be paying $30,000 to $35,000 a year for a staff accountant. TJX Corporate may be paying $30,000 to $35,000 for a staff accountant, and Bose may be paying $30,000 to $35,000 for a staff accountant. So there's data, and it's verified that the recruiter knows. So you as the candidate, if you sit down and you talk to your recruiter and you say, well, I want a job as a staff accountant that pays $50,000 a year, your recruiter has the knowledge and the data to say that's not what staff accountants earn. I work with multiple companies. I've placed multiple candidates for several years, and this is the range of what that job will earn in this area. Finally, I want to talk to you a little bit about income generation. I've spent the afternoon on this virtual presentation talking to you about the benefits and how to go about partnering with a recruiting agency. Often people partner with the recruiting agency because they're looking for a full-time benefited position. I recognize that many of you may have lost your part-time jobs right now. Maybe you were working in a retail place at Shoppers World or at the Natick Mall. Maybe you were a hostess or a server in a restaurant on Route 9. Maybe you were a camp counselor at the Y and things like that. And a lot of your part-time jobs, probably due to COVID-19, have gone away. You've been laid off, you've been furloughed and things like that. So if you find that you are in a situation where you just need some money, there's another reason why you might want to partner with a recruiting agency. When I mentioned that temporary piece, I want to just quickly go over some of the benefits to temping, because you may be thinking to yourself, why would I take a position where I'm just going to get an hourly wage and I'm ready to start my career for that full-time job? These are some of the benefits of temping. First of all, it allows you to make money. You're going to be making an hourly wage for however many hours that you work, even if it's as little as a day, a week, a month, or several months. It helps to keep your skills fresh. You could be doing temp work in data entry, so you're still using your Microsoft Excel skills on a regular basis. Maybe you're using Microsoft Access. Maybe you're using Microsoft Outlook, so you can email databases back and forth to whomever you're working with. This will allow you to keep your skills fresh and not get stale and rusty. It also helps you learn about and potentially see different types of organizations. Maybe you never thought about working at Staples corporate headquarters, but if they have a temporary position open, now you're going to get to learn more about their organization, how they're structured, how they operate, the different branches that are inside. You're going to get a window into whether or not you might want to add that to your target list. It also helps you build your professional network. Anytime you take a position, the person who is supervising you now is part of your professional network. And hopefully if they learn about whether or not a temp position may become permanent, or they hear about other permanent positions in the company or in another company, they're sharing that information with you. And that person can potentially in the future serve as a reference for you. So if you take a temporary position as a data entry specialist for 3 weeks, someone manages you and supervises you for those 3 weeks, and they're happy with your work, your work outcomes and your projects, now you can always ask that individual permission if they could be a professional reference for you moving forward as you continue to look for full-time positions. Sometimes you might even be what I call remembered by the company in the future. If you take a temporary position at Staples Corporate and it will only last 1 month, and the supervisor says, "You're an excellent candidate. I'm so glad that you temped with us. I wish I had a full-time job that I could give to you. Stay in contact in case something opens up at Staples." If you then go and temp at other companies, or you go back to a different part-time job, it's very possible that that individual may call you up in another few weeks or another few months when they do have a permanent position available because they remembered you, they liked your work, they got along well with you, and they want you to consider coming back in to do that work. And last but not least, you might even be hired by the agency that's representing you. If you are willing to work as a temporary employee and the agency is sending you out on several different temporary assignments, that recruiter, that agency gets to know you very well. Even though you only might be in companies for very short periods of time, you're building a long relationship with your recruiter. The recruiter may in fact have a position at their recruiting agency for you to go work for that recruiting agency. Again, when I'm talking about Robert Half International, they need people to be recruiters in-house. They need a front desk receptionist role. They need an office manager. They need database specialists. They need IT savvy individuals. The staffing agency itself may have a role that's open. Also, there's something called light industrial work. There are several staffing agencies that help to fill what's known as pick and pack positions or order fulfillment positions where you would be working in a warehouse. Especially right now due to COVID-19, a lot of individuals are home and they're ordering merchandise online. So if you were to be hired by a company to work in their warehouse, you could be in a pick and pack role where you're walking up and down aisles and you're filling boxes all day. Okay, John Doe needs 1 bottle of shampoo, 1 bottle of conditioner, 3 bars of soap, and a razor. And you're literally picking those items off of shelves, placing them into the correct containers. Order fulfillment has to do with the shipping labels, the packing labels, the FedEx labels, and what have you, to make sure all of those orders that have been picked and packed are scanned and ready to go out on trucks for delivery. And again, I alluded to this earlier, but in office settings, there's a lot of temp positions that typically are available in administrative roles, things like a receptionist, an administrative assistant, a mailroom clerk, data entry, and even positions in accounts payable, accounts receivable, and bookkeeping. Given the nature of the COVID-19 outbreak, my guess is temp roles are going to be most abundant in data entry positions that potentially can be done remotely, as well as accounts payable, accounts receivable, and bookkeeping positions. Last but not least, I just want to remind everyone that Career Services and Employer Relations is open year-round, and we are available for student appointments, even though we're currently doing virtual appointments at this time. If you just log in to Starfish, you can schedule an appointment at your convenience with any of the career counselors on staff. And please know that through the end of March, every day at a different time, we are offering a different topic for an online virtual presentation. Thank you so much for participating today in how a staffing agency can help assist you with your job search.